done stepped in the game? At point blank range, who done stepped in the game? At point blank range, who done stepped in the game? Stepped in the game, stepped in the game.
So yeah, I'm back yet again. You guys need to understand something. So, first of all, yeah, it's been a while. Who done stepped in the game? So I haven't uploaded in a very long time. But this is a little bit important. I'll go ahead and break down this. I'll give you guys a channel update and all that stuff later. But this needs to be addressed. So recently, the FTC has been doing a fuckload of doxing, basically. And I mean, intentionally and unintentionally. Some things have to be released if it's part of court record, so it has to be made public, right? That's how we found out about, Activision literally not knowing anything about Nintendo Switch and basically ignoring it and not knowing that, Call of Duty was a viable place for it because Bobby Kotick didn't even make it a priority. Like, he admitted that in court. So things like that are leaking, and one little note is leaking now that I mean it's just spawned a whole bunch of clickbait videos and a whole bunch of Twitter responses and all kind of social media posts on Reddit and everywhere else of people crying about this situation. So apparently a memo, a late night memo, went out from the email desk of Phil Spencer. And this is dated sometime in 2020, which is strange because this is right around the time that Animal Crossing literally broke the single sales record for a video game, like 30 million copies in like less than 9 months. It's just insane. People that don't know that, go look that up. And that was also during the time where, the whole ZeniMax cross Nintendo memes became a thing, and the Microsoft being really close to Nintendo thing started, with Xbox Live having some type of presence on Nintendo Switch and select games and things like that. Well, what's interesting is this memo was suggesting that Microsoft could buy Nintendo. This is what has people jumping up and down, right? They're like, "Oh God, it's Nintendo." Blah blah blah. I've said this. I've said this on social media, and I'll say it now. The biggest threat to buying Nintendo and Nintendo actually accepting is probably going to be Apple. I mean, they have a very close relationship, and if you notice, it's respectful. You'll never, of recent history, ever since 2016 and Nintendo launched the Switch, you would never see Nintendo even attempt to announce anything on the exact same day when Apple does their September event. So Nintendo does September events all the time, but now all of a sudden, they just can't do it on the same day as Apple. So take note of that. You can go back and fact check this, but going all the way back to 2016, Nintendo has not shared a day with Apple. And Nintendo has done an event in September just about every year since 2016. But yes, Apple is really, really, really close to Nintendo. They visited Japan. I mean, Microsoft has visited Japan too. But for Apple to go directly to Nintendo headquarters and sit with them and watch how they make games, and Nintendo to come to Apple and watch how Apple has their platform, Apple Arcade, and some of the developers they have there and how they make games there, to go on Apple's stage is another thing entirely. So if there's anybody that had a shot, Apple Pippin 3 or whatever you want to call it, it would be them. They're a $1 trillion company that has way more profit than both Microsoft, Sony, or even Amazon out there. A lot of these other companies have a lot of their money tied up in market cap, and they don't buy their own stock back, and they don't stack cash. Apple and Nintendo are like businesses in that way, where they stack cash. And I want you to keep that in mind, because that's where this story is going as well. Because this is what people should be focusing on, and this is what they should be worried about. I was okay with the whole Bethesda Microsoft merger, because first of all, we knew Bethesda needed financial help, right? And Microsoft had the capital at the time. They have the market influence or whatever. So even if they didn't have the capital, they're able to, how can I say this, virtually quantitative ease any issues that Bethesda proper would have as far as market goes, so they can secure loans and continue business until the deal goes through. I don't know if I still have that same feeling anymore. And it appears that Microsoft is still the same villain. And it's not for them attempting to buy Nintendo. That's not the issue. We knew Microsoft sent Nintendo a letter in 2000 before they launched their original Xbox. And of course, anybody that has any following with Nintendo knows that Nintendo laughed them out of the room. Right? My issue isn't Phil Spencer thinking about this late night. It's the strategy and how. That is what's terrifying. Because what that means to me is the gaming industry is becoming the new tech industry and the new political arm for profit and how to control businesses and eventually people. It's just really strange. And what I want people to understand is this is the focus. Microsoft didn't just want to buy Nintendo. They wanted to force Nintendo to accept. I'm going to say that again. They wanted to force Nintendo to accept. Not, hey, here's an offer. Here's an insane amount of money, Nintendo. If you want it, hey, good, blah, blah, blah. No. They wanted to force the condition where Nintendo could not say no. This is why I mentioned Nintendo has a fuck ton of money in cash. Right? This kind of reveals Microsoft's strategy for how they've been acquiring smaller publishers that they've brought in-house and how they think of business overall. And it's a weird thing because these type of strategies are taught. This isn't thought of. This is corporate business. I'm going to explain this to you. Phil Spencer not only wanted to take over and absorb Nintendo into their business, they wanted to do so in a cutthroat manner to where Nintendo had no choice. Through these documents leaked by the FTC, through this email, Phil Spencer has admitted not only that they have a contact, the name of the contact that they have on the board with Nintendo and how they would influence market pressure to get Nintendo to fold and sell to another publisher. This is what you should be afraid of. Because they can not only do this, it's more likely for them to do this to any other publisher that you favor or any other small studio that you favor to no longer be independent. They can do it at the drop of a hat if they really want them. Imagine one day you have a public company, right? And you're only trading and you only have investors with people that you trust or whatever. Only the people that you trust are on your board, right? Then all of a sudden, the entire stock market just folds. And it only folds in one way. And all of your investors turn to you and say, we have to sell. These are investors that you work with for years. You help build the company with them, and they turn to you and say, we have to sell. You give them other alternatives to get out of this scenario. You have financial advisors that work with you that says, yes, these are viable options we can use other than selling. We have about 10 of these. But a 100% vote of the board says, you will sell. You have no choice. This is what Microsoft wants to do. They are trying to subliminally hire or influence the board of directors at Nintendo. All the investors at Nintendo will be influenced for short-term capital gains, which is what the investors at Nintendo never really want. They're more long-term, which is why Nintendo stays publicly traded the way that they do. Otherwise, they would have gone private or they would have sold a long time ago. Nintendo doesn't operate on quarterly profit. The majority of the things that we hate in gaming, these weird transactions and all these weird payment plans, these price hikes, DLC and all this foolishness, are results of publishers needing some type of wealth extraction for the stakeholders at their company to gain quarterly profit. Literally, every quarter has to be better than the last. More profit, more profit, more profit. And they're continuously looking for ways to squeeze dimes out of the products that they're supposed to sell us that for fun. They're the new movie industry now. We got to find a way to make this product cheaper and faster every single quarter. Nintendo doesn't have those investors currently. Nintendo has no need to appeal to those investors because they don't need credit like that. Nintendo has the cash. Over $16 billion in cash last I checked. And they operate literally in profit every single quarter and every single fiscal year. The only time you will find them operating in debt in any way, shape, or form is around now, because it's when Nintendo increases R&D. Like when they increased R&D in 2011 and 2012 for Wii U, they were at a net negative, but a net negative out of their own pocket. They literally took a loan from themselves, then took pay cuts from the executives so their workers could still enjoy the fruits of their labor. And now we're in the situation where we want those investors to not think long term anymore. And that way Nintendo would be forced to bend to Microsoft's will. I really want people to understand this, because a lot of people, you may not be, you're not trying to be a venture capitalist, and you're not studying how capitalism works or how the current stock market works or any of that nature, or any type of financial tomfoolery or what have you, right? But the stock market has influence, and for the lack of a better word, Sony and Microsoft, for the most part, operate off of debt. They manipulate debt in a way to where their market cap looks good, and they can spend money off of money that technically doesn't exist. I will always say that the stock market is pretty much a graph of rich people's feelings, and you can borrow against that. And that's what Sony and Microsoft do as big conglomerates that are also in the gaming market. They want Nintendo to be like that. And once they do that, they'll have something against Nintendo to force them to bend to their will. Hey, you have official debt now, so do that thing or we'll close you. But what they don't know is Nintendo's philosophy from the beginning, from Yamauchi all the way down, has been the day we stop business the way that we want to do business, we will close. That philosophy has not changed. internally. Regardless of whether new people come up or not, the motto is still the same. Japanese are very traditional when it comes to that type of thing. Nintendo is a global name, but they're a Japanese company. They aren't a conglomerate like Sony. They are a billion-dollar company. They're very wealthy, but they're also very frugal. I just want people to understand this. This is the thing that you should be afraid of. If you have a trillion-dollar company saying with confidence that they can influence the market to force the purchase of another company as a hostile takeover, that should be a giant red flag to you. If it can happen, if they can even think about doing this to Nintendo, who's one of the most profitable companies in the history of the industry, what do you think their plans are for Midway, NetherRealm Studios? What do you think their ideas for of even Sony at this point? I mean, I really want y'all to start thinking a little bit deeper here, because it's a little bit more than gaming now. Unfortunately, we've gone into uncharted territory now, and now we're starting to talk about capital and how it influences how we game. It should never be this way. It should be a product being sold because it's good. But unfortunately, we're in a situation now where people can be paid or influenced to tell you what game is fun and what game isn't, what games should be marketed and what games shouldn't. And now the goal of buying games isn't even about fun anymore. Apparently, it's just to impress other people. But I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm going to let y'all think about that one.